Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Still on the East Coast, I am Josh Lander. That is Nate Weitzer. He's also on the East Coast, so we're kind of same coast today. But we're looking at Friday's end of the week here, baseball slate for you guys. Going to go ahead and try and improve a little bit on the 2-2 from last night. Still feeling decently about that. No real units lost, so we'll try to pick it up a little bit here on Friday to end on a positive note. We also kicked off our NFL Coast to Coast Player Props video for you guys this week, so you can go ahead and check that out as soon as it's up on the YouTube page, as football is in full swing. The Lions with that surprise victory, but we're still talking about baseball here, so continue to follow along by liking and subscribing. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Check out the great written content we're putting up on the site, full of content right now. Also have the odds finder tool on there. You can use that to make sure that you are getting the best odds available to you from all of these books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and run into your first best bet here for Friday.
Yeah, both bets I'm taking here are, again, pretty simple. The Orioles to win at Fenway, but just a team you can trust. And Kyle Bradish is a guy I want to back at Fenway because he's pretty elite in terms of limiting fly balls and homers, and that's what you need to do at Fenway Park. He only has given up a 6.5 launch angle on the year, -9 launch angle combined. His last two tough road starts at Arizona and Seattle. So definitely understanding the park and the fact that he's got to keep it on the ground. I mean, in general, 26% hard contact. And since the All-Star break, a 54% ground ball rate. So, yeah, let that O's defense work behind him. O's have the second fewest errors in the majors this year. He's got good control against righties, nearly a 5 K per walk ratio. And on the road against lefties, he's striking out 11.5 per 9. It's kind of mostly the curveball that's doing that work. It's rates plus 16 per Fangraphs. And Boston, while they've been good against the curveball early in the season, they have the third worst rating in the last 14 days, eighth worst over 30 days. And so I do trust Bradish to continue his strong outings. And the O's, who have won 8 of their last 9 on the road and 5 straight. On the other side, we got Tanner Houck, who's lost 5. The Sox have lost 5 of the last 6 at home because they've mostly been playing good teams lately. They've actually, you go back, they were swept by Toronto at home, and then they won a few against like KC and Detroit. But this is what happens when you have the toughest schedule down the stretch, and why Boston's probably not going to be able to climb into this wild card race. They don't beat these really good teams. Houck had to go against the Astros and Dodgers lately, and stepped it up a little bit, kept the ball on the ground. But yeah, the biggest issue with him is he's bad in high leverage situations. If you get runners on base, it's really rough batted ball data when that happens. And he's also really bad against lefties, which is part of the reason he has a 5.4 ERA against Baltimore in 2 this season. I mean, I haven't seen these kind of discrepancy splits against lefties, righties. 27% home run to fly ball when he's facing a lefty versus just 3% against righties, and the ground balls are miles apart too. So I think the lefties that the O's can throw at him are going to be an issue here. And at Fenway, again, yeah, the confines are very friendly if you can lift it down either line, and that's what lefties are able to do more often at that park.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're of a similar mind here. I have no problem with the Orioles on the road. I've definitely targeted them on the road a number of times this season. They have the second best record on the road. I mean, they have like the 4th best record at home. They're a top 5 team in baseball this year, so it makes sense, at least in the regular season. They're a very, very good regular season team. I will not be betting on them to be successful in the playoffs, but they have been proven to be really good on the road, and that's helped them a ton, like a 46-25 record on the road. Also covering the run line, by the way, with a positive number against the run line in terms of margin of victory, usually covering that by almost 2 runs per game when they're on the road right now for the O's. So I'm feeling good about them for what you're saying. I also like the over at 9.5. I think you can get value on that being in Boston. If this game was in Baltimore, might not feel quite the same about Camden Yards as I do about Fenway, but I love taking overs at Fenway. right now. When you look at Boston, number one batting average at home, that makes sense. They have a 111 WRC plus at home versus 99 on the road. Their batting average also much worse on the road. So there's obviously some reason to believe that they're always going to be scoring a bit more runs at that shorter park in Fenway. You've got the 6 examples this season. They played each other 6 times, which is actually pretty low for these division foes, but they'll be playing a bunch more in September. But this is the first series that they're playing this month, and the 6 times they played so far, 4 of the 6 games went over 10 runs. All of the games that were at Fenway, all 3 of them, went comfortably over 10 runs. They averaged 16, almost 17 runs per game combined, these 2 teams, when they played at Fenway 3 times this season already. So I'm continuing to believe in that trend. I got a little bit better stats for Kyle Bradish when he's at home than when he's on the road. And when I say little, I mean he's got a full run better on his ERA when he's on the road, or excuse me, when he's at home versus when he's pitching on the road. And obviously Fenway, not exactly going to be a very friendly park for him against these bats of Boston, especially like we were saying. And then, I mean, Tanner Houck, like, he's still not quite the big league pitcher I think that they're hoping that he will turn into, even though he's already 27 and has a few seasons of mediocrity under his belt in various places. And look, the last roughly like 7 outings for him, we're talking about giving up 4 runs in half, and a little bit more than half those, and not able to go more than 5 innings except for twice there, and he went 6 once. Like, there's just not much to believe in Tanner Houck yet, as far as I'm concerned. I think in this one, his 5.07 ERA is actually okay compared to his xERA, a little bit worse. And then you talk about bats on Baltimore, like you said, those lefty matchups for him should be a big problem as well with all those bats for Baltimore. So I feel comfortable with their money line, like you said. My favorite bet for a full unit is over 9.5 runs though in this game.
Yeah, I'm not fully on board with that just because I think it's so impressive what Bradish has been able to do, keeping the ball down. And that Orioles bullpen, very good. The Orioles, very good at winning these low-scoring, close games. That's generally how they do. But I do see plus odds for Houck just to give up 3 earned runs. So I will take that all day. I will back that side of the over. And that's also what I'm taking here in Houston. Blake Snell over 2.5 earned runs. Now that I look at it, it's the same odds for Houck versus Blake Snell. So that is something I have more confidence in. So we'll say a half unit here on Snell to struggle against Houston. But it's the Astros offense. That's why it's a pretty simple pick here. You can also look at under 6.5 Ks. The odds are just not good there. Minus 132 is the best you can find. But the Astros are not striking out at all. At all. Against anyone, the lowest by far in the last 30 days, the best WOBA, swinging outside the zone, but also making the highest contact rate outside the zone. They're number 1 against fastballs and changeups, and 6th against sliders. And Snell, that's 3 of his 4 pitches. He throws those 80% of the time. He has struggled in his last 2 against the Astros. You always have to look at that with a grain of salt because of 2019 and 21. Before they had been fully caught cheating. One of those was at Houston. But yeah, I mean, the only 3 Ks in both of those starts, gave up 12 earned in his career. Now he has a 6.1 ERA against Houston. And more than that, it's just he's going to get himself into trouble eventually. He has been this huge walk guy, is why I've been taking his over on his Ks usually in better matchups, because he puts so many guys on base, and then he has the 34% K rate with runners on. And so he just tries to wriggle out of it by not allowing contact. He's got a 90% strand rate since the All-Star break, but he's walking 6.3 per 9 innings. And the Astros, you're just not going to get away with that, right? I mean, they're incredible against lefties. They're incredible with runners in scoring position. Altuve and Bregman and Michael Brantley all have great BVP against him. And you look at a similar matchup against Toronto, that's tied with the lowest K rate against lefties. Even though he was able to miss a bunch of bats, this was on July 20th against Toronto. 16% swinging strike rate, under 60% contact overall. He missed a ton of bats, but he could not put them out. He walked 7, and he only struck out 4. So I do think under 6.5 Ks is in play here. But more than that, I just think you're not going to silence this Astros offense at home, even though they're allegedly not cheating anymore with the video cameras.
I don't think we've actually had to bring up any pitcher stats with an asterisk yet, talking about pitching in Houston. So that was exciting for Blake Snell. I was looking for a way to fade him in this one as well, to be honest. So I'm fine with taking the earned runs as the way to do that. Just really want to keep backing this Astros offense, and unfortunately, I don't think they have any more outings against the Texas Rangers where we know that they can put up football scores. But I still think that in a pretty solid matchup. I mean, look, Blake Snell has dominated some teams that are definitely a much worse offense right now than this Houston one that's come on strongly with a lot of strong guys on the right side of the plate as well. So I get it for sure, and I think runs in this game is probably a pretty good bet there. I'm going to close things out with my current GOAT, and that is Kodai Senga, as he is definitely the best pitcher on the Mets at this point. But to be honest, since obtaining that by default starter ace role, if you will, for the Mets rotation because of trading the two Hall of Famers that they did, he's been stepped up to the plate. He's been really, really good. And so I'm going Mets minus 112 on the money line versus Minnesota, who has Dallas Keuchel on the mound. And that's really how I started this bet analysis was, oh, sweet, I get to fade Dallas Keuchel against the Mets, who are better against lefties than they are against righties. And this guy is not going to blow anything by anybody. So that for the money line is a big reason there being Keuchel. I also throw out Senga, my GOAT, over 17.5 outs in this one, minus 110 for that on DraftKings. So I'm putting a full unit on both of those. This was actually my favorite bet, these two of the night, more so even. I do like that Red Sox Orioles over, but I just wanted to align that with, as you were talking about it, but I do prefer this one a little bit more when you look at Senga in his last 7 starts. And I want to be clear, in those last 7, he's faced 5 of the best offenses against lefties right now. Even the Angels are hitting lefties very well. The Cubs, the Mariners, the Cardinals, and the Bravos. So you know that he's been going up against really good lineups, having incredible success in those 7 starts. 2.64 ERA and a 3.6 xFIP. Really, really good with those fielding independent numbers. He's 2.64 ERA, like I said, is accompanied by 10.5 strikeouts per 9. Walks is the problem as well. He's got 3.25 walks per 9. That's not very good. It's in the bottom 10th percentile, and it could be how he gets into trouble against this Minnesota Twins lineup. It's just a matter of, are the Twins going to have plate discipline? Because they weirdly strike out a ton against lefties and in general, against righties and in general, to be honest. But they also they also walk a ton, which is kind of annoying because that's where he's going to get in trouble if he does, right? So I think if he continues to pitch the way he has, regardless of the walks, he's been able to get out of things with the strikeouts. It's why he's keeping all of his expected numbers down too, is because he's not really letting that many balls get into play. And if he's going to continue to do that, the Twins really have been relying on guys getting on base for them to score, as opposed to having really, really strong slugging numbers necessarily. So you're not going to get any more value on his Ks. He's been striking guys out a ton, just had 12 versus the Mariners, 10 versus the Angels. He's got a 45% ground ball rate that he's inducing during that time, which is really good for a guy who at times has been known to give up some hard contact when he does give it up. So I'm pretty confident in that. Like I said, the Minnesota Bats striking out a ton. I just think that they've been the Minnesota Bats playing well against righties lately. I think that's been partly because they haven't faced that many good pitchers. The 3 times they faced a solid pitcher that was a righty in the last month or so, it was Scherzer twice and Gavin Williams once, who only went 5. Other than that, it's been a lot more cupcake matchups for them when they're facing righties. So, and as far as the money line goes as well, just throwing some Dallas Keuchel out there stuff for you guys. 21 innings pitched since he's come back for Minnesota this season, 5.06 ERA and a 5.12 xFIP. A 3.3 K per 9 rate there, because he's just nobody's swinging and missing, like nobody, because he can't get that fastball above 85. The slider's working better for him, actually a little bit faster than the fastball, and there's just not much there when your changeup is like 81 and your fastball is 85. It's just not going to really fool anybody. So I don't think he's going to have much success against the Mets bats, and I think Senga can continue to go the 6 innings that he has been in all of the last 7 games he's played.
I can't believe Dallas Keuchel is still in the majors here and somehow figuring out, it's literally throwing stuff against the wall, see if it sticks, that he was able to throw 2 scoreless starts before getting shelled again on the road. Yeah, it's completely boom bust. And I will look once again. We have an over 2.5 earned runs bet that is pretty juicy, plus 115. So all three of those are in play here. If you're less faith in Blake Snell, or more faith in Blake Snell, I will throw out that either of those two much worse starting pitchers are worth taking the over on.
Yeah, taking some overs on some pitchers we're fading. And then, like I said, I'm still going to ride with Kodai Senga, who I'm sure they're happy to leave out there as long as he needs to be out there at this point. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Continue to follow along. Like I said at the top, like and subscribe. Check out those NFL coast-to-coast player prop videos we have coming each week now as well. Until we see you next, happy betting.